get started, thank you everyone for joining this month's virtual Tech on Tap event. My name is John Van Deck. I am the Economic Development Business Outreach Liaison for the City of Glendale. Today's event is exciting. That is because we have a very incredible and experienced guest speaker, Marian Thomas, who will be presenting to us today. Just to give you all a brief background as to how incredible Marian is an advertising and marketing expert and mentor with over 20 years of experience. She currently works at Zynga, which is a mobile gaming company. In the past, Marian has worked with some of the biggest ad agencies in the US, including BBDO and Carrot, as well as high-profile media companies, including New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers, MTV, BuzzFeed, and Yahoo, which is very impressive. Her experiences as a client, agency, sales executive, researcher, and sales development strategist allow her to have a unique perspective on the digital marketing landscape. Now, as you all know, the digital marketing landscape is constantly changing, and it is essential to understand its workings in order to advertise efficiently. And that's exactly why Marianne is here today to share her wisdom from her experiences in the tech world. Just a couple of house rules before we begin. Please make sure your microphones are on mute during Marianne's presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat box. As a reminder, we will have a Q&A session after the presentation, so feel free to ask your questions then as well. Now, I know you all are as excited as I am, so without all that being said, Marianne, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending today. As John did a great job introing, so thank you very much. I have a lot of background in advertising and media, and so today's presentation is a little bit advanced. So I'm going to try to kind of speak through it and talk about it in relation to Glendale community, and businesses in Glendale. But overall, it has to do with the entire global universe of advertising. So let's get started. So today we're going to talk about first-party data and the future of advertising. And what does that mean? What is data? And so think about it this way. If you are a dry cleaner, right, and you want to go back and you want to market somebody for your dry cleaning, you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to tell them the yellow pages, or maybe when they come to your dry cleaner, you want to get their email or their phone number and get back to them. That's information. That's data. Let's say you're a big business and you are basically working with other companies and they're like, oh yeah, we could do marketing for you, no problem. But what you don't know is that they're using stolen data. So these are all elements that tie into the businesses that you all have on a daily basis in marketing. And so whether you are a small business or a big business, anything tied to marketing is tied to data. And the future of that is really going to be predicated upon how you're communicating with your consumers and what that means to your business. So today, what I'm going to talk about is how identity fuels both targeting and measurement in advertising. That's very important to understand that, because a lot of people think that having somebody's information is just about targeting, but it's also about measurement. And the other piece of that is consent-based first-party data, meaning you have to ask permission. This is the wave of the future, and being transparent and open with people. And people are more open to sharing information with you if you're honest with them and you tell them why, instead of lying to them and stealing their information. So today what we're going to do is talk about the identity and why it's important for advertisers, the specific challenges facing the ecosystem with identity, and how first-party data would work in that specific element. So now we're going to talk about defining it. What is it? Data actually is the backbone of every single technology that you guys touch right now in advertising. Whether you work at an ad agency, whether you work at a trading desk, whether you're working at like one of these big companies like a Google or Facebook, or or you're working with them, or a small ad agency, or you're buying a TV ad, a local newspaper, all of those technologies basically have data that is behind it. And so when we think about advanced media buying, and this isn't just your regular, oh, I have a small business. This is a little bit more advanced, but even if you have a small business, if you want to save money, you're going to buy programmatically. So programmatic advertising, all it is basically giving you an opportunity to go out there, kind of like the stock exchange, and you're bidding on ads on the internet. All you're doing is bidding and saying, hey, I want to pay $1, I want to pay $5. And depending on the kind of targeting, right, you're going to pay $1 maybe for people that are 18 to 59 years old, right? Okay, I'm going to pay $1. But let's say you are a dry cleaner and you only want to buy people that tend to do dry cleaning or work at big businesses or, travel a lot, that they're going to need dry cleaning. Well, okay, I want to target people like that. Is there an audience for that? Yes. But you know what? I'm going to probably have to pay $7 to $10 for that because it has targeting, right? And that targeting is tied to data. So when you look at the perspective, if I'm an advertiser, usually you're going to either go through an ad agency or trade desk, or you can go straight, to your platforms. Like you could go to Facebook, or you could go to Snapchat, you could go to Google, you can go in there, and any small business can buy it as well. And when you buy that, you're basically going into an ad exchange, and you're basically going out and seeing all the different people out there who have inventory and ads to sell to you. And you have to figure out which ones you're going to buy. And that's where you put your parameters in. And your parameters are, hey, I want dry cleaning, or I'm a big business. And then that comes to the publishers, companies like my company, that we have games and we have ads inside our games, or somebody like a Facebook, or somebody like teeds.com, or your local website. So what is identity? Identity, and the difference is that, oh, there's a big echo. So somebody can please press mute. Identity is all the information about a specific person or a user built into a profile. And so when you start talking and getting into advanced marketing, and this is why I always tell people, just because somebody buys an ad on Facebook, and I'm a snob when it comes to this, but I have a right to be because I've been doing this for 20 years. If you just buy Facebook, you are not an advertising expert, period. Because Facebook does a lot of things with data that is not necessarily kosher. And also, that doesn't mean you understand what's behind advertising. So I say that because when you buy ads, you have to understand that there's a lot of other layers that go into it. And that's identity and how you target. So for example, your identity could be a cookie. It could be an email address. It could be the website login. It could be the device ID, whether it's your IDFA on your Apple phone, or your Google ID on your Google phone, or your connected TV, your Samsung and your Samsung apps, or even your PlayStation or your Switch, or any of those. So all of those are basically tied all together into one, rolled up into one household. And the whole goal of that is to tie it into a household. So when earlier, you remember how we were talking about how you're basically, this is the advertiser and this is the publisher and the audience. Well, in order to do that, it has to go through all these internet pipes. So imagine that you're targeting that person who likes to go to dry cleaning, right? Well, that person who goes to dry cleaning has to first go to somebody like Zynga, because that Zynga is going to basically serve them the ad. So let's start from here. You have somebody in the data store. Let's say you have their email address, right? You upload it into, let's say, Facebook, and let's say Facebook's the publisher. So Facebook is the publisher, and maybe it goes into an exchange because you're bidding and you're basically talking to other people. Whenever you're going through that entire purpose, each step that it goes through has a different technology. This is a different technology. This is a different, each one of those has a different ID system, if you think about it. So now that one person, me, Marian Thomas, my ID is this, but on this system, it's this. So now if you can imagine the code, like just one string of code is going to have all of this in there. And when you have that with billions and billions and billions of impressions a day, it could slow down the internet, right? So that's why it's so important to be smart about how we're looking at identity, how we're looking at data, and how we're making it smarter. So if you start asking marketers across the United States, what do they depend on to figure out who their customers are? And as a business in Glendale, any business, big business, small business, your number one priority is know who your customers are. You have to. And so in this perspective, there was a survey done at the end of the year where it talked about what do companies use, and most of them use email address. And then what some of you might not know is a lot of people use IP address, meaning where you're accessing the internet point from, because majority of people access it from home, whether you're on your mobile phone or your computer, your desktop, your switch, whatever device you're on. And then identity also, like again, so you log in, you have a login user, they've given you an ID. That identity fuels targeting. It also fuels measurement. So if you think about it, you don't want to actually, you want to have a frequency capping on your ad. So if you think about it, you don't want to like serve the same ad to the same person 16 times, and then they're not going to want to work with you again, right? So that's called frequency capping. And that means that you're basically controlling how many ads a person sees. The truth is, in television, you need 3 ads to make an impact, 3 to 5 ads. So in the TV world, if it's a big screen and you're watching a video, you need 3 TV commercials for somebody to actually retain it. On the internet, depending on the size of the ad, you might need 8 to 10, believe it or not. But if you do the right kind of ad with the right frequency, you may need less. And then who are you going to target? Am I going to target moms? Am I going to target dads? Or maybe you have customers that spend a lot of money. Like in gaming, we have a lot of customers, but to be honest, only like 10 or 20% are our big customers. So when you have a big customer, you want to remarket to those customers, right? And then let's say you're buying over 50 websites. You want to make sure you could measure and know which website is driving more purchases, whether you're selling jeans, whether you're selling law firm services, or you're selling dry cleaning services, or you have a big business and you're selling high level accounting or something else. But all of this, again, is predicated upon privacy as well. Always remember, privacy is important. So, how do big brands think about identity? So if I was a Nestle, right? Nestle was in Glendale for a long time. I don't know if they still are, but I think there's DreamWorks and you've got another big companies out there. So when they think about media buying and buying advertising, they're buying the unified personal journey. So they want to buy a commercial. They're buying it for your laptop, your cell phone, your desktop, everywhere. And so they want to manage it across all channels, omni-channel. So that means that when you're buying advertising, you want to buy ads across all these platforms, whether it's television and platforms like gaming, whether it's, CTV, whether it's your PC, your tablet, or your mobile. And you want to buy different kinds of a flat ad is called a display ad, meaning it's not animated, it's just flat, right? Then you've got a video ad, right? And then a native ad is kind of like those BuzzFeed type ads or ads that are like weaved into the content. And then you've got audio ads, which is the new thing, but with podcasting and Clubhouse and all these other things and audio like Pandora and Spotify, you've got a lot of audio ads as well. So these are 4 different types of ads, and then these are the different platforms. So as a brand, you want to be able to target your consumer and measure them across all of this and waste $0, right? Who wants to waste money? You want to always target who you want to get. So, yes, this is a complicated thing. And that's what I said. Advertising is complicated, but we're going to make it fun and easy, hopefully. So, how brands think about targeting and measurement. So, on the left side is all the different steps. And if you think about a funnel to purchase, like from the top down, we're going to go broad and then we're going to go small. So, when you stop at the top, I want to advertise and I want to reach women 18 to 34. That's a broad target. So that's really about awareness because you want to spray and pray and reach every single woman because you know that they're going to love your product. And on the other side, when you spray and pray, your ROI is like 0.5 to 1. Like you're not going to get as much of a return, but what you are going to get in this is brand lift. You're going to get people talking about your product. You're going to and even if you don't see a direct result in sales, you are going to see value trickle down in your social media, trickle down in your search. People are going to start searching for your product. They're going to start talking about your product. So that brand lift is important, and spraying and buying a big audience sometimes is important. As you go down the funnel, you may want to go a little bit more targeted. So for example, let's say you are reaching moms who, because Nestle, I'm going to use Nestle for example, Nestle knows that moms love buying snack food during the movies and at home. And so now they want to target people that are frequent moviegoers. So now you could target a little bit more finite and say, okay, I'm going to go in and prospect a little more deeper. And instead of serving up an ad, a flat ad or a video ad, maybe for this mom, I'm going to serve up an ad that has engagement, like a little game, a mini game. Maybe it's tic-tac-toe or something else. And maybe it has a coupon at the end. And by doing that, I'm going to be able to measure if the mom played with the ad, experienced it, maybe downloaded the coupon. And so now there's a different kind of engagement and measurement. And that usually actually does have a better return on your investment. And now, again, we're going to go way deeper. I'm going to go on the bottom first, because when you collect first party data and you collect data, you can use it to target your users, which is your own customers. And you could retarget your own customers or your website visitors, right? And then you could eventually expand that and do lookalike modeling in advanced, but we're not going to talk there. So as you have this kind of data and you're going down the funnel, you're also going to go from bottom up and start targeting people that are already your customers, but you're going to do it in a smarter way. And the way you're going to measure those guys is basically your cost per visit to your site, your cost per click, and eventually your cost per acquisition if you specifically are an app, or your acquisition could be an email. Your acquisition could be somebody buying your insurance services or buying your legal fees or legal services, or coming to your dry cleaner and becoming a customer. So this is how we think about how you're going to target and then how you're going to measure. Because at the end of the day, every single dollar that you spend in advertising, the truth is, when you work with people who know what they're doing, they're going to help you figure out what that return on your investment is, so that you can constantly test and modify and get the best out of your marketing dollars, but also at the end, drive your business and make some money. So here's a problem though. We are having a lot of challenges in this industry. I mean, a lot. First of all, last year we lost the cookie for Safari and Mozilla and like Firefox, right? So we lost some of the browser cookies. And this year, the end of the year, Google is depreciating Chrome within the next 2 years. So the third party cookie is dead. Like, just know that it's going to die pretty soon. The second is California also has a separate CCPA. We also know that Virginia, the state of Virginia, actually has a different law, and the federal government might be coming out of it. And let's not even get further with the international. So if you have a business that is international, you also have to comply with GDPR, which is, again, the global data protection. So, and then finally, this week, which is every single app maker's hell, just so you know, anybody who owns an app is going through hell this week, is iOS 14 and Apple, because now they're going to require people to opt into their favorite app for tracking. And you guys are going to start seeing this within the next couple of weeks. You all are going to start seeing bad ads because people can't target you. You're also going to start seeing a lot of your apps and your favorite apps asking you permission for tracking. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to serve up ads. And unfortunately, without that, they can't really do it very well. So when you talk about advertisers and you talk to advertisers and you ask them, like, what are you worried about like this year? And a lot of them are worried about this because, it's really hard to be scalable if you're a small business and have, oh gosh, now there's a Virginia law and I have to worry about that. Like, what am I supposed to do? So a lot of people are worried about that. They're worried about measurement and attribution because they want to know who you're working with and if they're actually really a good partner or not, right? People are worried about this whole data regulation. It is a big thing, you guys. And 10 years ago, we were dealing with it with email. And now you guys are so used to going in and opting out of emails if they get too annoying, right? It's the same thing with data and advertising. It's just the whole industry has so many different types of regulations that it's very confusing. Then they're worried about targeting. How am I going to find my customers? And then, of course, who are those customers? So when I look at the impact of Apple and what's happening with Apple, bottom line, because this is, again, very advanced advertising, as a publisher, as somebody who owns a website or an app, honestly, your pricing is going to go down on some of the Apple stuff if people don't opt in. You're going to go, and pricing is going to go down. In addition to that, you're probably going to have a difficult time measuring certain things. And so it is going to be a little bit difficult, but it's not impossible. I think I have a lot of great solutions. The DSPs and NMPs, these are businesses that are in the middle. So all the people that are being in the middle, these guys are going to have the hardest time. Okay. And this is the truth. At the end of the day, I think it's a good thing because the truth is that the relationship should be between the advertisers and the publishers. But because advertising got so big and there's billions and billions and billions of companies out there, a lot of people are using this programmatic ad exchange, kind of like the stock market, like I talked about, right? But there's fraud, and if you don't know what you're doing, there's a lot of waste, and now you can't target. So a lot of this is going to be a waste. And so, to be honest, if you're going to buy ads, just go straight to the person you want to buy from ads from instead of getting a middle person, right? So there's a lot of things out there now that people are doing to try and solve this whole identity crisis, because the truth is, if the advertiser doesn't opt in and the publisher doesn't opt in, at the end of the day, the two are not going to connect. And so you're going to have a hard time targeting and finding people. So the industry is coming up with a lot of different proposals. One is like this universal ID, this nirvana, and it is nirvana because, like, to be honest, it is flawed highly, and I'll tell you why. All of this is so great except one thing: not everybody is doing it on mobile, not everyone is doing it on TV. So, like, what's the point of doing this if you can't do it on every platform? So, and some of this isn't privacy compliant. So again, I'm afraid that the regulations from the government might change things. So I would stay away from this. Um, Google has the privacy sandbox. If you guys just Google privacy sandbox, there's a lot of articles about it. At the end of the day, I'm telling everybody, just stay away from anything of anybody who offers you these kinds of solutions. The best way to do it is through a data clean room. Do it with kosher companies that are experts and trusted in data, because at the end of the day, you don't want to go into that world. If you're a small business, honestly, you're not going to worry about that because Google and Facebook and some of those bigger guys have a lot of protection there for you. But be careful. And this is why I'm going to say be careful. And this is a real big warning. We talked about Apple, right? Earlier. Yeah, right here. Okay. Apple is specifically tells you you cannot target someone on their mobile phone if they don't opt in. However, if you're a small business and you work with Facebook, your prices are going to get affected. You're not going to target people. So as a small business, you are allowed to upload all your emails from your customers into Facebook and target them, which is amazing, right? You're going to save money. You're going to do great targeting. Here's the problem. The liability is on you, the business. The moment you upload into Facebook, you have to read the terms, because the moment if you don't have permission for that user's email and you give it to Facebook to target them, and that user decides to sue, you are liable, not Facebook, because they're basically washing their hands. And then Apple may actually ding the person that is the publisher that the ad runs on. So there's a lot of really tricky things over there. So just be careful when you're out there playing with data. So my whole thing is consent-based. I think that as you move forward as a business, whether you ask for somebody's email address, their phone number, here's the thing: if you're going to do marketing with it later on and that's why you're asking for it, just tell them, listen, we won't bug you a lot. Tell us how you want to be bugged. If I was you, I would say, hey, do you want to be bothered often or not often? Do you just want to be bothered for, like, let's say sales? Maybe somebody only wants to be bothered by sales, or somebody only wants new product information, or maybe somebody wants to, you guys are having like a big event or something. So give people options. Just like if you think about email marketing, very similar, give them options. And when you give people choice, they're more predicated to share that with you. Another thing is making it flexible. Make it flexible. I love how Twitter does it because the design is so beautiful and easy. They bring it into the app. So if you have an app, don't just like send them to a freaking mobile web page where it's like this long ass legal jargon that they're going to get bored and they say, "Oof, okay, fine." And you know what? They may say yes just because they don't want to read it. But guess what? You're not applying to the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law is just to let people know what they're getting themselves into. And I think that by doing that, make the information easy to read. Today's generation is young. They've got ADD. Nobody has time to read long shit. Seriously. Make it short and easy. And if somebody wants more information, click to learn more. But you should be able to say it in short, brief ways so people can digest it. Another thing I love is New York Times does this phenomenally. They have a long ass privacy policy, right? Okay, great. But they also make it easy. Little FAQs that are plus minus so that you could just click it, get the info you want, and go. So this allows somebody to just browse through all the FAQs, know what question they're, curious about, and then click, get the info, get in, get out. You know what I mean? Or make it sexy, make it pretty. You want them to give information. You have to have a value. What is the value I am getting as a consumer giving you my information? Think about it. So, for example, hey, if you give us your email, you get a chance to win, free dry cleaning for a year. If you give us your email or join our rewards program, we're going to give you a rewards program and 100 extra coins or 100 extra points to use towards a gift certificate in the future. These are the kinds of incentives and things you want to think about so that when you ask people for information, you know that they're getting value out of it. And of course, you can also do interest-based, basically just targeting people based on their specific interests. So how is that used? How is that data used? So you could stitch data any way you want, you guys. And that's the thing about beauty. Whether you're a big business, you can compile your social. You could basically have a website and ask them for their age and gender and their location. If you're an app, you could do specific events in your app, like what kind of actions are people doing in my app? What kind of music are they playing in my app? What kind of content are they consuming in my app? All of that information is very useful. What kind of identifiers are you collecting? Are you a small business and are you just using email and phone number? Are you a big business and you're looking at cookies, IP addresses, and a whole lot of other things? So depending on who you are as a business, you'll be gathering data and you're going to be able to stitch that data into, hopefully, if you're big business, an identity graph, and being able to bid in these big exchanges and stock markets for advertising to be able to get the best kind of value for your money. So at the end of the day, again, just to recap, targeting and basically measurement, identity fuels both. So whether it's brand awareness, whether it's consideration and prospecting, whether it's driving them to purchase, as you go down the purchase funnel, you're going to need data, first party, third party, interest based, location, all of that. You're going to need data no matter what. Ask permission and work with partners that are going to also, on the right side, measure it the right way, whether it's from the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom when they do purchasing. So, why is all of this important for Glendale? Again, there's so many different privacy laws out there, whether it's global, California based, or even US based, right? Because if you are a business here in California, you may be buying advertising because your product is like all over the US or globally. So you want to make sure that you're complying with standards in collecting personal data such as email, phone number, cookies, mobile IDs, all of the above. And make sure that's important part of your business plan and how you advertise. So Glendale businesses that engage in this type of digital marketing, whether you're buying on Facebook, whether you're buying on Google, you need to know what you're doing. Work with agencies that know what they're doing and work with companies that understand this landscape and will help guide you in the right way. Because again, it is easy to get caught up with, getting the best deal, but know that whoever you're working with knows what they're talking about. Do your homework. I always tell everyone, do your homework. There's so much great homework out there. There's great resources. I'm more than happy to recap it later and show you guys a lot of resources I've collected and get people educated in some of this more advanced advertising. So when you think about mobile and you're like, oh, I have an app. Well, great. But guess what? There's all these companies out there that deal with mobile. So look at the mobile landscapes. There's a huge landscape of opportunities here also for Glendale, where there's companies out here that maybe Glendale businesses can be working with. Maybe you guys have something that's a technology that some of these companies can benefit from. There's the audio landscape. This is a huge landscape. You think it's just one or two companies, but there's a ton in the whole voice enabled technology, whether it's your smartphone, right? Whether it's the smart home, whether it's your smart car, right? All of those are powered by technologies. All those technologies are powered by data. Video. Video is the number one advertising in the United States. So people love video. They love it on TV, but they love it on their phones. They love it on their CTV. They love it on their gaming platform. People love video. So the video landscape is big too. So if you're into video production, video cutting, editing, creating ads, all of those kinds of things are very valuable in this landscape as well. And that's kind of it. I know I talked a lot and there's a lot of data out there. And I'm just going to leave it on this slide because it always helps answer a lot of questions. But I just wanted to see if you guys had any questions. and go from there. I know
Feel
that.
free to unmute and ask the question, or if you'd like, please feel free to use the chat box as well.
Okay, oops, chat box. Let's see, chat box. Okay, any suggestions how to prevent your data being leaked? Okay, so one of the questions is data and targeting. Yes, okay, that's great. How your data can be leaked. Yeah, well, it depends on who you're giving it to, right? And it depends on if you're business. If you're a business, yeah, there is a great ways of doing that. Make sure that you hire the right fraud companies. Any business that is collecting data, whether it's on your website or anything like that, or let's just say you are getting credit cards, right? Every single one of these businesses, whether it's Bank of America is your banking company or whatever like that, all of them have data protection. All of them have data insurance kind of a thing, right? For data leakage. So now it is incumbent upon you as a business to constantly be asking the partners you work with, are you insured for that? Or what are you doing for data protection? Do you have fraud control on top of your data warehouses? And if you are a small business, I think it's just making sure that if you launch a website, right, making sure that website has a lot of the right security on top of it, so that when you are collecting data and when you're storing data and you're accessing data, all of that is protected throughout the phase. I hope that answers the question for data leakage. Let's see what else we got. Marketing companies are, okay, question. The marketing companies are working in a particular industry. How can we find the right marketing company in the industry we are in? Is there a database for that? Depends. So it depends on your industry, right? So every industry has its own ad tech. Absolutely. Um, there's a thing called Lumascape, and Lumascape's great when it just like does like advertising in general. But let's just say you want to look at categories, right? Like I work in, let's say, retail, or I work in consumer packaged goods versus entertainment. You're right. Each one of those industries has different databases, and it's really going to depend on what industry you are in to get those specific databases. But in advertising sales, we have to work and recommend every industry. So there are tools out there that are prospecting tools for all industries. I would highly suggest, there's a really great tool called Seller Crowd in LinkedIn, where you can just ask a bunch of anonymous questions and people give you answers. Or you can pay for a prospecting database. So like, for example, for agencies, there's like the Red Books. But another little trick I'm going to tell you guys about is this. There's this thing called the LA Business Journal Book of Lists. Okay. $20, very cheap. You can get this for every city in the United States, Book of Lists. And what it does is it lists you the top 20 in every single industry. So if you're in a specific industry and you need to hunt and you need to like fine tune specifically who you want to work with, Book of Lists is really great and it's very localized. So I would highly suggest start with that, or Lumascapes, which I could also send you as well. Okay. What cases do you see for metadata in the particular excite you in 2021? Interesting, specifically, if you have any thoughts on podcast advertising, contextual media. That's a really good question. Okay, so podcasting data is basically, it's not as meta as you would think. I mean, to be honest, like photography and photo and just anything digital, there's a lot of metadata in there. But I would say let's start with the first one, which is the podcast. Podcasting, I think, is going to hit the same exact rules, whether it's podcasting, whether it's creating a video, whether it's creating audio, video, the same rules are going to apply to podcasting. So first of all, podcasting isn't completely curated. Apple just announced in the new Apple version that they're going to basically do, they're going to start curating podcasting, right? So now you can go to your favorite sections, because you can't do that right now. There's no navigation. There's no way for a user to discover podcasting. So podcasting can hit its critical mass if it's not done right. And so that's been a difficulty. A lot of companies feel like they need to be on the podcast bandwagon. So there's a ton of people out there doing podcasting. Doesn't mean it's necessarily good. So just like any new area, there's a lot of bad stuff. There's a lot of good stuff. And you have to really understand what's good and what's not. The data is going to apply to all of it the same way, because whether the podcaster is a publisher or whether the person is somebody buying advertising and podcasting, you need permission from both sides. So all the data you collect is great and dandy, but it's not going to do you any good if you're not getting the permission and you're not, using the data the right way. Contextual advertising, now that's a different story. There's two kinds of context. So let's talk about two kinds of context. There's the first kind of context, which is things that are like your location, your device and user agent in your phone, like the battery, how much space your battery has, right? These are all little elements that are context of who you might be. And so a lot of people in the programmatic world are thinking about creating databases, even if you don't ask for information because it's not private, and do contextual advertising that way. If you're talking about contextual advertising in that way, I personally, again, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I personally think that's wrong. And again, because if you look at the way Europe is looking at it, you still didn't ask for permission to do that. Now, if you're talking about context regarding content, that I absolutely agree with. And I think that's what's going to happen in the future, which is called old-fashioned media planning. And so what I think is going to happen with contextual is, let's say I'm an ad network and I have 15 different kinds of apps in my ad network, right? Contextual selling is, hey, you want to target moms? Well, I know that moms use weather apps because they're always checking the weather in the morning, right? I know that moms do a lot of entertainment, and I know moms do a lot of shopping, and I know that moms are on a lot of loyalty program shoppings. So now I have 4 kinds of app categories, and I could target your ads and say, this one line of advertising is going to be for people who have weather apps, and this line is going to be people who have entertainment apps, and these is line for that. And that way contextual advertising is like that. So for any of the big players, or if you think about somebody who is a newspaper magazine or like Vox or a sports site, right? You could say people who love basketball versus people who love football versus, that's not stealing people's information. That's just what you know about your own users or your own network, right? So that's context. And I think contextual in that context, bueno, I think that's fantastic because that's what traditional media buying is. Knowing who your customer is, knowing what kind of media they're consuming. What kind of media are they consuming? Like, for example, 18 to 24-year-olds, they don't watch as much TV. They're on their mobile phones or they're gaming. That's the truth. They're on social. And if you think about social, where are they on? They're on Twitch and they're on Discord and they're on TikTok. That's where they're at, right? But if you ask a 40-year-old what they're doing in social, a 40-year-old's probably on Facebook, sadly, and Instagram, and maybe a little bit TikTok. And that's about it. And they're on their websites, or maybe they're listening to music, or they're doing other things. So depending on what your age is and where you are in your life, like, are you married? Are you single? Are you gay? Are you straight? Like, there's something for everyone on the internet, right? And if you know who your customers are, you're going to know how to market them. And you could find partners out there that have context. So for example, I may not need to buy an ad in a magazine, or I may not need to buy an ad here. I could buy an ad, let's just say I know that a lot of people go to this one grocery store and I want to do a sale in that area. I could just go to that grocery store and figure out what they're doing that's unique. Maybe I could just put ads on their shopping cart. So there's a lot of creative ways that you could think about advertising. It doesn't have to be just the yellow pages or just Google or just Facebook or just a website app. It could be many different things, and it just really depends on what your goals are and who your customers are and what you're trying to achieve. Any other questions? I think we're doing good. John?
Yes, I don't see any other questions in the chat. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to type it in the chat. But if we do not have any questions, that was a very informative presentation, Marianne. Thank you so much for presenting. And thank you everyone for joining us as well. I hope you all enjoyed the presentation as much as I did. Before we completely end today's Tech on Tab event, I do want to ask everyone to do a big favor for me. I just put in the link. I just put in a link in the chat. For those of you that are watching the recording, the link is GlendaleTechWeek.com. This webpage has important information regarding our annual Glendale Tech Week, which will be held from September 20 to September 23 this year. We have planned events ranging from a job fair, pitch fest event, and our well-known Meet the Funders event. And I hope you all are able to join us this year. More information regarding Glendale Tech Week will be made available in the upcoming weeks. This information can be found at that link, or if you follow our social media platforms at Glendale_Tech. Thank you again for presenting, Marianne, and thank you everyone for joining us. This Tech on Tap event will be made available via recording on YouTube.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, John.